Franchise Secrets, Erik Von Horn.
If you're not a part of the Franchise Secrets Facebook group, what are you waiting for? It's franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. I cannot believe how valuable this group turned out to be. When someone asks a question, the feedback is honest, authentic, very helpful, and it's from multiple perspectives. If you're not sure that you're getting the most accurate information about franchising, then check out the largest, most helpful Facebook group in all of franchising. Whether you're a Z, a Zor, a buyer, or investor, join our free Facebook group at franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. Hey, Franchise Secrets. In this episode, I have my good friend Kasim Aslam on here. And I had some plans to talk about all kinds of things. Like he had a big exit in his business. He's an amazing at marketing and Google and whatnot. But he said, hey, how about we talk about hiring offshore? I'm like, that's a great idea because I'm in the process of doing that right now. So we talked about how AI is changing the labor landscape and how do you get ahead of AI? One of the things you do is you start to hire offshore. And there are ways to do it that are very effective. There's ways to do it that will frustrate you and will be very ineffective. So we went into it like, how do you do it? Do you go through an agency? Do you use Upwork? His answers to those were both no and no for different reasons for most people. But he talked about like these job boards. How do you filter out the people that you don't want? And so you're not doing endless interviews. And he just has a whole process of filtering people out, being clear on what you are looking for. So many things that we went into. I'm going to go back and listen to this episode multiple times. He also started to share the video at one point, share his screen, and went into very specific ways of doing this. And he has a whole outline on doing it. And so he gives that to you as well. So you can go in there. It's free. He's not selling a thing. So I hope you enjoy this episode with my good buddy, Kasim. All right, Kasim, you're one of my favorite human beings ever. When I first met you at a mastermind, you didn't know anybody, and I was lucky enough to like become your friend. And then the next mastermind, like everybody knew you and wanted to be your friend. So I think I'm your friend by default because I was one of the first guys that you met at that mastermind. So,
I remember you trying to like trade seats with other people. You're like, I don't want to sit next to this guy.
I tried to get away from you. It was long hair. I used to have long hair, and my kids won't let me do that anymore. And I'm like, so I instantly did not like you.
That makes sense. I have that impact on most people, actually, for varying reasons, I think.
Well, you are a college dropout.
Right.
I'm a college graduate. So
yeah. Some nice early flex right at the beginning of the podcast.
Degree.
Yeah.
Big business degree.
You should have it on the wall behind you, Erik, like it framed and the nice thing, all that.
If I would have gone to my graduation, I might be the kind of guy that would have it behind me. Yeah. And if I actually had my diploma somewhere that I like knew where it was, I probably would. But I didn't go to my graduation because I just didn't care. And I have no idea if I actually got a diploma that came in the mail.
Wow.
But I am a graduate, so I can say it on podcasts and just,
I don't know that you can. I don't think you can prove it.
Well, you are the unapologetic college dropout related to a president.
Yeah, TJ.
How'd you find that out?
My great to the eighth grandmother. My father's Pakistani, in case you're wondering about the name and the complexion. My father's, my mom's American. Like my
American? You say your mom's American?
American.
Okay.
Yeah. You gotta drop that A, Erik, when you meet my family. So they're hardcore. Every uncle played college football. They all served in the military. They all hit full bird except Uncle Dave. He's a lieutenant colonel. He's the black sheep. My mom's 8 to the 8th grandmother is a woman named Elizabeth Ann Kemp, and Elizabeth Ann Kemp married John Carraway II. Well, Elizabeth Ann Kemp was the granddaughter of Thomas Jefferson, who is not the Thomas Jefferson. He's Thomas Jefferson's namesake, who Thomas Jefferson was named after, and is also his grandfather. So they're first cousins. So I'm TJ's first cousin to the 8th power.
Well, that's kind of like having a college degree.
A little bit. Yeah. Well, until if you read about Thomas Jefferson, like there are better people in the world to be related to. Smart guy, but there's a little rape and slavery there that you just have to overlook if you're going to admire him.
Yes. Well, let's not go down that rabbit hole. We'll save that for dinner and
podcast
drinks.
entirely.
Yeah, that's a new that's a new podcast you and I can start. You and I
Hey.
both have podcasts, and we could start a brand new one and just offend a lot of people and become offended. And
I'm already offended. We're halfway there.
all right. I asked you before the show. I just knew that I wanted you on here, and it's not easy to get you on. It's a good thing that we're friends. You're high demand, you run masterminds, you speak on a lot of the biggest stages. You're one of the most brilliant minds in marketing and Google, and just a thinker that thinks differently than a lot of people do. And so we could have gone so many different directions, and I gave you like 10 different things, and you're like, yeah, those are good, Eric, but what about hiring offshore? And I'm like, perfect, because I'm about ready to do that. So this is a great topic. So it was you picked the topic. Where are we going with it?
Yeah, I picked the topic because it's my favorite topic, and I also think it's the antidote for what's about to happen. And what I mean by that is the proliferation of AI is going to change the intellectual labor landscape in ways that none of us understand. Have you played with ChatGPT at all, or Midjourney, or any of that shit, dude?
I have.
Are you impressed with it?
Yeah.
I'm blown away. I'm
Yeah.
terrified, like terror-stricken.
And you're in that world. You knew about all this AI stuff, and like you knew about this and how fast it learns and all these things before the average person really understood it.
Eric, it's why I sold my agency. I had the #1 ranked Google Ads agency on the planet. I was netting 7 figures. Like you don't sell the money-making machine. But I just looked at what was happening, and I'm like, all right, in 5 years, you're not going to need me. And in 3 years, everybody else is going to be able to see that. So I needed to get off the boat before, the whole world was like, oh, it's thinking.
You're not the only one that thinks like that too. I've had multiple
That's
college,
even more than
college
multiple.
graduate right there. Multiple conversations with different people, and they are seeing the same things with like how impactful AI is going to be on different businesses in a negative way, or you get ahead of it.
Yeah, or you get ahead of it. So that's actually what I want to talk about, because here's the thing. The thing about getting ahead of AI is not going and learning all the AI. That's not it. I think the root of being successful with AI is going to stem from the people that you hire, your everyday normal 9-to-5 hires. And here's why. Even if your business doesn't do anything within the confines of AI, you're going to end up utilizing AI no matter what on a long enough timeline. That's a fact. And a good employee with AI is amplified to a powered multiple. So like amplified to the 10th power, to the 100th power, because the AI is doing so much. And to make this maybe a more tangible conversation, let's say that, there's a part of your business where content creation is required. And so you currently have an employee who like writes an email newsletter, writes a blog, writes social posts. Well, the AI is going to do all the writing. So now one employee, instead of writing 2 blogs a day, is writing 20. So that good employee is amplified to 10x. But the bad employee is also amplified. And all the mistakes they made, all the issues that you have, there's a great quote from Bill Gates. I'm going to butcher it, but it's something like automation applied to an inefficient system does nothing but amplify the inefficiency. And so I think that AI is going to make people so much more important, because every quality decision a person makes is worth hundreds of times more. And every bad decision a person makes, every mistake, ends up being amplified across, a cascading multiple. And what I'd like to talk about is I've developed this system. I call it the Pareto talent system. It's nothing I sell. I don't have a course.
I was going to say, I know you, and you're not on here picking this topic because you're selling something to the audience.
Dude, I probably should, because I swear to God, Eric, it's the most It's the most valuable thing I've ever done professionally. It's the reason I hate to use these words because it sounds so arrogant, but it's the reason I got to where I got. Like, I have 100 employees. I'm the dumbest human that works for me. And that sounds like, pulpit lip service. It's true. Like, you go meet my people and you're just like, oh dear God. And it's because I figured out, I kind of cracked the code on finding really, really, really bright folks. And they've amplified the value of my business. And I think that especially for small business owners, like, everybody should have an executive assistant. The amount of work that y'all do on a daily basis, that's $5 an hour work, and I know everybody, it. I don't have to convince you of this. You know what I mean? Like, just shifting through your email inbox or following up on people or scheduling appointments. Like, there's so much stuff that could be outsourced, but then you take that and set it aside. Any customer service, any outreach, any early stage sales engagement, like, there's so much that you can, and I'm going to use the dirtiest word in the whole wide world. You ready for this? Talking about being offended, #offended. There's so much that you can outsource. And we're talking about stealing American jobs here, Eric.
My wife, I was just talking to her about that, Kasim. I was saying, hey, I'm looking at hiring a VA. She's like, are we taking away from American jobs here?
Yeah.
So
Here's let me set your mind at ease. Because I carry a copy of the Constitution around in my backpack. If you want to challenge me on that, I will show you right now. Like, I am deeply, dearly in love with this country for so many reasons, not least of which being that my father's little swimmers could have shot off somewhere else and I'd be Slumdog Millionaire right now. So I am about red, white, and blue. Try hiring that person here. And we can do this podcast. Just go try. And then 90 days later, we'll come back and you're going to be like, bro, here's what happens. It's a multivariant problem. The first problem is the Pareto talent, the real high upper echelon talent. We can't compete, right? Because there are these insane multinational organizations that will pay anything for these kids. So if you're hardworking and industrious, you can go be an entrepreneur, work for yourself. And that's what a lot of them are doing. And God bless them. That's what's great about this country. We've given them that opportunity. B, you go work for Amazon, Google, Apple, Facebook. You make $1 billion a minute with stock options. You have a nice fancy title, ivory tower, and then huge ascension opportunities. Small businesses do not have access to talent onshore that we have access to if we were willing to cross borders and boundaries. And when you hire, and I say offshore, it's actually a misnomer because I'm talking about Canada, Latin America, and then of course South Asia, Asia, North Africa, the Middle East, Eastern Europe. When you hire outside the bounds, and there's an economic reason for this too, Eric, if you wanted to get really philosophical with me, it has more to do with the fact that we have the reserve currency and we basically depress everybody else's economy. But because you can pay in American dollars, you get a better quality human than you can afford to get here. And that might sound like a pejorative and negative, and I'm a bad person, fine. But it's something that I could prove with math. And the thing about Pareto talent is there's a really amazing study. I'm trying to remember, I've got this cited somewhere. But it was an examination of the production value in an economic environment within the confines of industrial organizations. That was said really flowery. I'm going to try to say that again. It was a scientific study of who actually does the shit. And what they found was a very small fraction of the participants produce most of the economic value. And we're used to the Pareto distribution, which is 20% of the participants produce 80% of the value. That's actually not the case. That's kind of oversimplified. The actual math was the square root of the total participants produce half the value. Here's what's crazy. I've seen this in my own business. My business partner, who wasn't my business partner when we started, I had to slap golden handcuffs on him and give him a couple of points. He's one employee out of 100. He manages about 40% of my revenue. And everybody in every business is going to see that same thing. And you can either fight that and think like, oh, I don't want to be beholden to people like that. And how do I distribute? Or you can say, well, gosh, how do I find more people like that? And when you're hiring offshore, you're putting yourself in a position to, dude, for $1,500 a month, you can get a triple PhD out of the Philippines. like a truly extraordinary human. I've got a bunch of them, a ton of case studies. I've got a girl, Julianne. She was my EA for a long time. She's now my director of automations. When I sold my agency, one of the reasons that the folks that bought us, they're very large, $700 million valuation. One of the reasons they bought us is because I have the best engineering of any agency that I've ever seen. It's because of this 24-year-old Filipino Julianne, who I started paying $1,500 a month to. She's now my director of automations. I've got another gal also in the Philippines, Angelia, who runs my customer onboarding department. She is the most accountable human I've ever met in my entire life. My current CTO right now also started as my EA. His name's Ivan. He was in Ukraine. I've got a kid, Dean. I don't know where Dean is. I think he's in Venezuela. Dean is not only one of the best Google Ads managers we've ever had, but he's brought me 5 other people just like him. He ends up being like a lighthouse employee. And I pay more than anybody would ever pay in whatever geography they're in. That's the key, by the way. So the average Filipino VA makes $500 a month. I pay $1,500 a month. And I get the best people in the whole wide world. And then I let them loose. That's the other piece. We have this opinion as to what offshore labor is capable of. They're capable of like data entry, website scraping, maybe low-level call center stuff. And then people have bad experience with offshore labor and they're like, oh, it doesn't work. And my question for them is, how long would you last in that job? Somebody sat you in front of a computer and like, all right, bro, you're going to do data entry every single day for 8 hours a day you know what I mean? Like I would chew my fingers off. So yeah, if you had bad experience with people that you're giving crap work to, it's because they're being given crap work. People want to contribute. They want to matter. They want to have a meaningful relationship with not just their boss, but the entire organization. And if you can hire folks and treat them like humans, which is something that man, you should hear some of the horror stories that I've heard from some of these offshore resources, like not getting paid for things, being asked to do twice the amount of work that, that is possible. Just the minute you bring somebody on, show them that there is an ascension path, there is a future with us. And by the way, I'm going to treat you like a real human. Man, I cannot begin to tell you, Eric, the impact that it's had on my business. It is amazing. It's the biggest, what's the word I'm looking for? It's the biggest advantage I've ever had. It's the little hinge that swings a big door. Like I can hire 3 people for what it takes you to hire 1 entry-level person here. And my 3 people are probably more motivated, harder working, grateful to have the job. And dude, I don't know about you, and this is where I stuff off the rails a little bit, but hiring onshore, I mean, the first question out of every new hire's mouth is, what's my title? Tell me about PTO. What benefits do you have? Like, it's just like, it's just very, very, very me, entitled, interesting labor pool. And I just don't want to deal with it. So I go elsewhere.
So here's the deal with the Franchise Tribe Mastermind. It's full of a bunch of successful franchisees across many different industries, many different brands, and you get to be a part of that. Now, if you've had any level of success in franchising, you've probably been around top performing Z's in your current brand. So think about that. And if you could do that with 40 plus different brands, industries, franchisees, that's the value in the mastermind. I bring in some of the best speakers in the world. We talk about some topics that will never be talked about anywhere else. So if you're interested in being a part of a group like that, check out franchisetribe.com. How do you make that first offshore hire? You can use an agency. You can use you and I both know people that have agencies where you can pay $1,500 and you get 40 hours a week. So you're paying $1,500 to an agency that kind of manages that VA for you. Or you go to Upwork and you just search for something, and prices are high on Upwork. You look at Upwork and the prices seem high until you start talking to them, then the prices get lower. Or are there other options? Because I would imagine once you get into it and once you're in it, you get addicted to it and you're like, oh, I can now, this works for the simple VA stuff that I thought I would do it for. Now I can hire somebody for $500 a month or $1,000 a month. They can start doing other things for me, and you kind of know how to manage them and how to find them. But how would you do it today? Knowing what you know now, how valuable they are, but how would you go about finding your first one?
It's a great question. I wouldn't use the agencies because your relationship is with the agency, not with the resource. And you don't have control over how that person feels, engages. That's really important. Culture, dude. It's so funny as a young man, when I first started, I always thought like, when people talked about building a company culture and crafting your values, I just hated those conversations. I was like, this is obnoxious, and now I see the immense value in it. And if you hire through an agency, there's no way to inject your culture into that person, period, full stop. Upwork is the wrong network, because Upwork is a whole network of entrepreneurs. Real hard to get an entrepreneur to come get a job by definition, and they're already making a ton of money on Upwork because they've kind of cracked the code and they're entrepreneurial and they're willing to take the risks and go outbound, etc. So what you want to do is, there are job posting boards for all of these various geographies around the world. And depending on where I'd really like Latin America right now. My newest EA, Sergio, smartest kid on the freaking planet, man. I just fire off my problems to him all day and he just knocks them. It's like skeet shooting. Like I lob him up and he's shooting them down, and he's kind and he's attentive. And I found him, he's in Colombia, and I found him, there's a site called remoteco.com, remoteco.com. But here's the thing, you can't just post on one job posting board, just like
wait, remoteco.com or remote.co?
No, remoteco.com.
Okay.
That's the Latin America one, but there's a dozen. What I would recommend doing is, when you craft the job description, post it on as many as you can find. And the more specific you get, the better. If you're hiring for a specific role, look for specialty job boards. So like, there are job boards just for graphic designers, job boards just for content creators, job boards just for people that want to do outbound sales, prospecting, customer service, call center experience, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The reason I like Latin America is going to get a little racist. They've got names that we can pronounce. I'm saying as a human that has a name that most people can't pronounce. But that, dude, it ends up being a thing. Like if I'm like, oh, hey, reach out to my EA Sergio, people are like, okay, Sergio, got it. But if I'm like, reach out to my EA Hrithik, and you're like, maybe I won't, like maybe, and it's not, dude, there's nothing racist about it. People, it's a, what would you say? It's an anthropological construct, in-group preference and novelty response. This is how people's minds work. And we have to play with that. But they're more or less on our time zone. I think Sergio's 2 hours ahead of me. They celebrate our same holidays, which is really helpful, because if you're hiring out of India, you're going to get some folks that have just diametrically opposed schedules. And this is the part that I'm a little hesitant to say, but I'm just going to say it. They have accents that are not repellent to the US ear. So for you and me, every single time we've ever had a horrible call center experience, it's been because we're on the phone with somebody from India or from the Philippines. And it's frustrating. And you've built that neuroassociation. And that's not to say that you don't hire people from India or Philippines. Some of my best employees ever are from both of those countries. But that is to say, if you're going to make somebody an early stage customer contact, I like Latin America, because the Latin accent is one that we're all acclimated to. And it's not an instant like, oh, here we go. These guys are just, farming this crap out. And it's huge. It's this massive landmass. Latin America it's not just South America, it's Central America and parts of North America. And, for $2,000 a month, you can get C-level performance, like truly C-level. It's hubris to think that we're the only country that produces intelligent people, right? As a matter of fact, a casual observer might assume the opposite. So there's these amazing resources, dude. If you go put out the feelers, post, craft the job description. And I have some, I don't know how deep you want to dive on the specific tangibles, but okay. So here's the thing about the job description. One, you're going after people that don't necessarily know they're looking for remote work. They're going to normal job boards looking for normal jobs. So you have to, when you post the job, you have to say remote in the title. And then you have to repeat that throughout the job description. And you might even need to define what remote means. I say, hey, this is a remote. And then in parentheticals, I say work from home position. At the top of my job description, I say, when you apply, please make sure the subject line reads as follows. And then in quotes, I actually read the instructions. Here's why this is important. You're paying so much more than other people pay that you're going to get an onslaught of submissions. It's an impossible task. It's a needle in a stack of needles. So what you need to do is have a really strong filtering mechanism. So in the subject line of the email they send you, I never use HR portals or submission portals. I always just use email. It makes it easier from a process management standpoint, especially because it's my EA now that manages these processes for me. They say, I actually read the instructions. If they submit and that's not the subject line, I don't even look at it. Skimming through my description here, and I can share my screen, Eric, if it would be helpful for you to follow along.
Yes, it would.
Would you mind enabling?
Sorry, everyone that cannot actually look at this. And what we might do is we might just put this out on a video out there, so anyone listening, we'll probably post this part of this as a video so you can see his screen.
Yeah. Would you enable?
All right, man.
Sharing, sir. There we go.
So you should be co-host now.
Cool. So sell yourself first. You know, again, with the remote, they're going to be a little skeptical of you. They might have been taken advantage of. And, you know, this is true, even if you're hiring onshore. I hate job descriptions. Some of these things, when I always go on and I look at what people are doing in the competitive market. And so many of these things, they approach from above. They're like, we're the best in the whole wide world. And in order to apply, you must. And, you know, it feels like a wanted poster. And instead, like, make them feel like you're a fun place to work. And you can do that however you want. Inject whatever personality you want. Tell them what it is that you're looking for first, because there are going to be cultural idiosyncrasies, you know, potential language barriers, whatever. Don't start listing the actual job description. Instead, give them an example of their average day. Like, hey, this is more or less what your day looks like. The next section that I have here is salary and growth opportunities. This is really, really, really important. People want to know there's a future in general. And especially when you're talking about remote work, they want to know that they're not about to land themselves in, you know, just a dead end call center trap. So I like to say that this job starts at X. I never, ever list a range. There's a couple of reasons for this. Culturally, certain people have a very difficult time with negotiation. The Filipinos are like this. They're the least combative people you've ever met in your entire life. And if you list a range, that's already stressful. So just say, hey, this job starts at X. And then give them very specific guidelines as to what's going to happen. You know, I have here, and this is just an example job description that I use for client managers, but you're going to work under a full client manager as you learn the trade. So I'm basically saying you're going to get some training. I'm not going to throw you in the deep end. You're going to be assigned clients slowly as we begin to build your confidence, like letting them know, hey, we're going to build up to this together. And then here are the growth opportunities. And the growth opportunities are real, by the way. I can't begin to tell you how many people have started from the literal bottom. The girl that runs my agency now, Leandra, was a client manager. She's now the COO. I go on to list the ideal candidate. You can only have 3 to 5 skills in any job description. If you have more than that, you're asking for too much. And I hear this all the time from business owners. Oh, I need someone who knows graphic design, video editing, content creation, Google Ads, and, you know, a little bit of finance. I'm like, really? Have you ever met that human could you do that? So just hire for one thing.
Hey, I got a question in this too, because so you're putting this out. This is the job description on a job board. Mm-hmm. Do you say full-time, part-time, number of hours, and like do you have a full-time position for this particular candidate right away, or do you just know that they can work into that full-time position?
That's a really good question. I will hire part-time if I don't have enough work for somebody yet, and if I list part-time, then I will put, you know, part-time job. And then if it's full-time, I'll put full-time job. Usually most job boards have you check that selection so that it's filterable. And if you're hiring part-time, just take the numbers that I'm giving you and cut them in half. And you're still doing really, really well. I like part-time hires for a lot of reasons, but for the business owner, it helps you scale into the resource too. Because if you're like, dude, I actually really do need a video editor because I'm putting all this content out, but I don't have enough work for one full-time. Well, this lowers the barrier to entry. You can use the personality profile stuff. I used to use this really heavily. I used to use a company called crystalknows.com. I stopped using them because they just got too expensive, and my process is good enough to not need it. In the beginning, it can be really helpful though. Especially
so what are
if
you looking for in a personality? So you can do a lot of different ones. Like you can do disc and all these different ones. So that don't cost very much. What do you look for in a personality profile?
Well, the key is to go get somebody, or if you have a group of people that are already doing this job well, get them to take the personality profile, and that'll tell you what to look for. Don't arbitrarily approach it and think, I need someone who's persuasive, assertive, confident, and direct. You don't know. Go get the people that you think are really awesome at this job, get them to take the personality profile, and then back into it that way.
Yep. Good.
I put my skunks on the table. And this is really, 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 really important. List every reason that it's going to suck to work for you. You know, you might say, hey, sometimes you're gonna have to deal with irate customers, or hey.
So when you say put it skunk on the table, you're saying make sure you're comfortable with, and then you list them out
line by line, element by element. You might
Because
say
this is part of the filtering. Like
that's
they
exactly
should
right.
this is the filter.
Yeah, you want to talk people out of the job. I'll tell people, especially if it's offshore, I'll say, hey, you have to work U.S. hours. I might say,
So when you just say U.S. hours, what do you define as U.S. hours?
it
Your
depends.
hours?
For me, it's really negotiable because I've got clients all over the country and actually now all over the world. And so as long as somebody's on a US hour time block, you could be PST to EST and I don't care. You get to pick. Now you might not be like that. Like let's say that you're a franchisee and you're like, dude, I'm in Fargo, North Dakota, and I need somebody to be working Fargo, North Dakota hours. Great. I have Sergio, my kid, because he's in Columbia, he's a couple hours ahead of me. He starts work before I do, goes through my entire email inbox and Slack inbox, clears it all out so that when I wake up, I've only got the messages that I actually really need to attend to. So you can actually kind of hack the system there a little bit too, if you want to.
Okay, when we're done with this, we have to talk about somebody managing your inbox because that scares me to death.
Oh,
So
dude, it did me too. Eric, it's the smartest thing I've ever done. But it's absolutely terrifying, and you have to really trust the person, obviously.
Yeah.
But skunks on the table, let them know whatever. And there's other reasons that your job might suck, right? Like you might say, hey, there's heavy client turnover, or I have a really strong attention to detail, let's say, or whatever. Go on to list your values. I believe very strongly in hiring and firing to your values. Our 3 values, these are the values I teach my children. It's truth, responsibility, and love. I say heart in job descriptions and on public forums because love scares people. For obvious reasons. You don't want your employer to love you. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
You're so smart.
And then we jump into the to apply. This is the part at the top where I say, you say, I actually read the instructions. That's a very strong hint to go read the instructions. And now these are just little fly traps. You can change these fly traps to whatever you want. You don't have to use mine. But the very first one I say, send me a link to your resume. Notice I say link, not the actual document. It's not an attachment, it's a link. It's a small nuance. I want to see if you're paying attention. Make it in PDF format with the following naming convention. And then I say last name dot, first name dot, and then the name of the role. Here's why I do this. So many people that are applying on job boards, they get into job board application mode. They open up 500 tabs for all the jobs they're going to apply for, and then they just go submit, attach, submit, attach, submit, attach. I want to stop you in your tracks, and you now at least have to rename your resume, put it in a PDF, and now I'm forcing you to kind of put a little bit of extra work in. And if you don't follow these instructions, I don't consider you, period, full stop, especially because it's a virtual remote working environment. I have to trust you have strong attention to detail, regardless of the role that I'm hiring you for. The next thing I ask her for details of their experience in this position, if that's necessary. A lot of times you're hiring entry level. That's okay. You can ask for your completed personality quiz. I don't do this anymore. This next question is really important. This is a secret Trojan horse of a question. When you're hiring offshore, it's not uncommon to find people that are far more conservative than we are. Specifically in terms of their theological commitments. Working with these people can be really hard because they'll have an issue. For instance, they'll have an issue working under a woman as their supervisor, or like let's say that you're doing a 4th of July sale and you have images of people in a bikini and they just can't handle it. So the question that I ask to filter those people out, which is technically illegal if I were hiring onshore, by the way, is what's your answer to this question? If you were an animal, what animal would you be and why? Now, the answers that you get are really fun for the interview anyway, because you get to see people's creativity. But if you ever hear somebody respond with, oh, I don't want to be an animal, humans aren't animals, or humans are animals, or, I wouldn't be an animal or whatever, that's a really good sign, just based on what I know about some of the specifics that we're trying to filter out, that this person might be a little too conservative in their thinking. The next question is mine. You choose your own question. Pick a Bible verse that you love, or, if you've read a Peter Drucker book and there's just something that really resonates to you. I have people say, what does this quote mean to you personally? And there's a Lebanese poet named Khalil Gibran who I really love. And he has this book called The Prophet that is absolute must read. And in The Prophet, he says that work is love made visible. And I like people telling me what this quote means to them because I want to know how they feel about work. What does work mean to you? And then the answers are very informative. I have them submit to a specific email, and then I let them know that, hey. And
that specific email is like applications, or what is it?
No. So here's a pro tip. If you use any Gmail or Google apps, you can take your email. So let's say it's Erik@gmail.com. You can add a plus sign and then anything you want, and that will still go to your inbox, but it allows you to filter now. So you can have Erik plus new role at gmail.com or Erik plus accountant at gmail.com. And now you basically have a whole new inbox just for these submissions.
Oh, I did not know that.
It's pretty cool. I let them know that I want good formatting. And then, dude, here's what's crazy is you get slaughtered with submissions, especially because, again, you have to pay. And this is the real key. Pay twice what other people are paying. And entrepreneurs have a hard time with this. Everyone wants to pay less and get more. But if you pay less, you get the person who's trying to do 10% less. If you pay more, you get the Pareto person who's doing 3 to 5 times more. There's nothing cheaper than paying more. There's no way to save money in a better way than to pay more. You get an onslaught of submissions, filter them out according to the little fly traps that I offered. And then this is where stuff goes crazy. You ready for this?
Ready.
The next thing I do, your job is to not do interviews. The next thing I do is a paid trial project. So I send them an email saying, hey, thanks for the reply. I really appreciate. Oh, and you know what's funny is you can look at my email template. I actually say, sorry for the late reply. I appreciate you following up. Sometimes if I have too many submissions, I won't respond to anybody and I'll wait to see who follows up. I don't always do this. I let them know I'm impressed with their answers and their attention to detail. You want to reward them when people jump through hoops like that. You don't want to be dismissive of it. And then I say, hey, I've been hiring people for 15 years and I found that interviews don't tell me much until we've worked together. Why don't we cut to the chase? Let me hire you for a small trial project. I'll pay you $25 USD for 2 hours of work. Is that something you're open to? If send me your PayPal address and I'll submit the funds up front. Here's what's crazy. I get people that say yes, of course. And then I send them the $25 and dude, 1 in 10 people ghosts me. What a great lesson to learn. You know, you might say like, well, I don't want to do this, you know, because it's about $250 if you're going to do this with 10 different people. But wouldn't you love to pay $250 to figure out like who's attentive, who's not, who's ethical, who's not, before you like let them into your email inbox and start doing business with them? And then with a trial project, I send them the money and then I don't respond with the project details. I wait to see who's going to come back to me and say, hey, because again, it's virtual. You want to make sure that they're proactive and they're attentive. I send them the trial project. It needs to be specific to the role that you're hiring for. You can see my trial project here if you're actually looking at the screen. If you're not, it's a booking system. I ask them to find people that they think would be good for me to interview on my YouTube channel and then to create a scheduling link. Super simple with some email follow-up. But this is the fun part. I give them access to a software. We use Go High Level. I give them access to a software where they can build this inside of. I give them the wrong username and password. Then I ask them, let me know when you think this will be complete by. Here's what I'm looking for. If I send this to you on Monday and you're like, oh yeah, I'll have it done by Friday. And Thursday night, I get a frantic email. The password doesn't work. Now I know. You're a procrastinator. Here's the other thing. It's really cool. The password, I've got, the username is sandbox@soul8.com. The password is sandbox with a C. So a smart person could look at this and go, oh, it's a typo. And the EA, Sergio, the kid that I hired, actually figured this one out. Little fly traps like that. After they've completed the trial project, you review your shortlist, and anybody that you feel isn't qualified, kick them out, and you'll have some people whose projects sucked. Oh, and by the way, they have to shoot a video for me, create a video summary of the work that was done, and send it to me. And everybody else, then I schedule an interview with. And the interviews, I have a couple more fly traps too. I have them book time with me, but I have them send the video conferencing tool they want to use. Sometimes if I have still too many submissions, sometimes I'll cancel in the last minute, see who follows up. I've been yelled at before by somebody. I'm like, well, it's good I don't put you in front of clients. And then the interview is the easiest part, because you've taken maybe 1,000 submissions, you narrowed it down to 10, and they're all rock stars. They're all badasses. They all want to work hard. They're all super motivated. And so now it's like, hey, what does life look like in 5 years? Don't be afraid to hire entrepreneurs. It's the best thing you could ever do. One of the things that I like to say, and this is almost always true, I say, hey, listen, I feel like you're overqualified for this position. You know, I mean, I'm hiring you to just do prospecting, and you've got this amazing resume and this amazing education, you know, help set my mind at ease. And that's going to be true because of the disparate construct that we're operating under, but they're going to say, look, you're paying more than I can make elsewhere. And I like the opportunities here. And that's a good answer. And dude, imagine the people that go through this process, Erik. Like, I have the best humans in the world. I love them so deeply. And that's the best part. I don't have to micromanage at all. You let them go, and good, proactive Pareto people, peak performers, make things better. So, I put Angelia in front of the customer onboarding, and she, every couple of weeks, and she's been doing it for years. And so the improvement opportunities start to narrow down. But every couple of weeks, she's like, hey, I noticed that this is a stall point, or this question ends up causing problems, or customers having a hard time here. She finds a way to make it better. Like I've very rarely had employees like that before I built the system.
Attention franchisors, if you are not bringing in many of the right franchisees, sales are slow. It's stealing too much of your time as a founder trying to award franchises to the right franchisee. There's a better way to do it. That's why I started the Franchise Sales Mentor. If you want to have access to the information, the techniques, the ways that the best franchise sales organizations are awarding franchisees, then you might want to check out the Franchise Sales Mentor. The reasons that franchisors join is because they want access. They want access to my Rolodex. They want access to my connections. They want access to shortcut both short-term and long-term success to increase enterprise value to their brand. That's amazing, man. All right. So we will have this posted. If you want this, go into the Facebook group, franchisesecretsgroup.com, and we'll have a way for you to get it there. We'll probably just post it in there as one of the main videos there. And that's awesome, man. You're going to send me that Google Doc?
I'll send you a link where they can go to download it too. It's just solate.com/Pareto.
Perfect. So say that again.
SOL8, the number 8.com/Pareto. Pareto is PARETO. And I dropped that in the chat for you, Erik.
All right. So we'll put that in the show notes. Thanks for doing that, man. I learned a lot. And right now what's going through my mind, I love to ask questions. I'm like, there are questions that I'm going to have tomorrow that I'm not asking. Frustrating me. So what parts of the world are people known for? We're going to get back to the inbox thing, but what parts of the world are known for being great at X, and how much is a typical pay scale for that person or that project?
Yeah. The Philippines is great for creative. And, this again starts to get mildly racist because you start to caricature people and make stereotypes. I think there's anthropological reasons for these things. With the Philippines, Design Pickle went into the Philippines and started hiring a bunch of graphic designers. And so I think what that did is it just created this rush for people to go into graphic design school. So if you want graphic designers, content creators, and I mean written content, video editors, love the Philippines. I also really like the Philippines for customer service when written. I don't love the Philippines for customer service if we're talking on the phone. And it's honestly, dude, it's because people in the States are just, I've heard the call recordings where I know you're on the phone with an intelligent human who can solve your problem. And the minute you hear their accent, you're just like, oh, great, here we go. Yep. And then we get our loud, boisterous Americans. And so for people on the phone, I prefer Latin America and specifically Mexico. Mexicans watch US television, I found out recently. And so their accents tend to be a little bit more aligned with ours. The Eastern Europeans are some of the smartest people in the whole wide world, especially as engineers. The problem with Eastern Europeans is, and I'll talk about the problems too. Filipinos are the least combative humans you'll ever meet in your entire life. So it's really hard to give them constructive feedback. You have to be very soft in your delivery. Eastern Europeans will never do anything wrong. So if you're like, hey, I know generally speaking, it should be a circle and the rules say it should be a circle. The client wants a square. Let's just make it a square. They're not going to do it. They don't care what you're getting paid. They don't care. They cannot. It's a philosophy somehow. But again, the thing about the Eastern Europeans is they're the most accountable humans I've ever worked with. You can really trust if they say it's going to get done, it's going to get done. Indians and Pakistanis, not so much. And I'm Pakistani, I'm allowed to say this. If a Pakistani tells you Friday at noon, it's Monday at 3. And then they're kind of mad that you're mad. They're like, dude, you knew going into this. I was, time is not a science. But if you want engineering help, media buying, web development, software engineering, there's no place in the world that has such an amazing inventory of people that can solve any problem, like true problem solvers, and fun to work with. The thing is about Indians and Pakistanis is they've been the most poorly treated of any group of humans I've seen in the labor force. And so you really have to earn their trust. It's not uncommon for you to hire somebody in India or Pakistan and they have 3 other jobs because they don't trust for a minute that you're going to pay them. You're going to pay them on time. You're going to pay them what you promised to pay them and that you're going to keep them around. And so here's what sucks about building a relationship with a person like that too, is you find that out and now you don't trust them, but they didn't trust you going into it. So if you are just a little patient and you earn their trust, dude, I've never had more loyal employees ever. And like the kid that runs it's such a fun, dude, I have so many of these stories, Eric. I promise not to soapbox too much. I have a young man named Ankar. He's 25 years old or something, young guy. He makes 8x what his peers would make, but he's the best. He's one of the best Google Ads managers in the world. Imagine making 8x what your peers would make at the same role. He just bought his parents their very first house.
Wow.
This is the first home this family has owned, and Ankar bought it at 25 years old. Like, you can change lives. And, you're like, well, dude, you pay this guy 8x. That's insane. Like, that's actually starting to be really nuts. He manages my biggest client, by the way, like a publicly traded company. And there's little Ankar, slapping away at the keyboards, crushing life. So there's just an unbelievable group of people. I love Latin America. Latin America tends to be, that's a big place, Latin America.
Yeah.
So you can get a lot, customer service. I don't ever hire a salesperson. You have to split sales up into roles. Hey, this is prospecting. This is list building. This is outbound. You know what I mean? So just make sure that you're really specific on the job descriptions, but you can find a little of everything in Latin America. The girl that runs all my social, Ari, she was a English teacher, a middle school English teacher for 13 years in Mexico. And she's the most creative, most attentive person. She cares so much, almost too much. She's amazing. One of the Gabby, who helps run our sales department, she's in Mexico too. Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Nicaragua. Dean might be in Nicaragua, actually. I said Venezuela. Costa Rica. And as far as amounts are concerned, look at the jobs that you're hiring for on those job boards, and you'll find out really quickly.
Okay.
And dude, I like to double and triple. So if you're like, and other people don't like to do that, that's fine. But my system works better if you've doubled and tripled, because you need people to be ravenous. You need people that are actually motivated to jump through all these horrible hoops you put in front of them. So if somebody's paying $500, pay $1,500. And the output that you're going to get is it's insane. It's just outsized returns. It's almost like a magic ATM. It's like, man, I put in $1 and I got $10 out. This is unbelievable. Oh, in Canada, here's the other thing. If you have to hire, if you're like, dude, I don't feel comfortable putting people on the phone with folks that for whatever reason are just not politically or philosophically aligned. Let's say you run a gun association and you're like, there is no way I'm going to put my, gun toting preppers, of which I'm one, by the way. I'm not blasting those Pope. I got to put them on with somebody that they're not going to be pissed off by. Canada, if paying $45K in the US is like paying $60K in Canada. They're not worried about healthcare, and it's cold, Eric. They can't go outside. All they do is work. And
I get it. That's what I'm doing today in South Dakota.
You're almost Canadian.
I am almost Canadian, eh?
Yeah, and they're friendly, kind, empathic, and I've got 30 Canadians that work for me, almost approaching that, maybe 25, 26. Gold mine up in Canada.
Dude, thanks for all that. This has been very tactical. This is great. All right, inbox. Did you ever have any reservations about giving someone access to your inbox? And we got
yes.
Personal, professional, and like, do you split them up? Like what, like give us some wisdom on inbox management.
Yeah, I have an email address that's just mine that my family knows about, that, like my wife and I are in marriage counseling right now. Because sometimes you go to marriage counseling and there's emails that go back and forth between us and the counselor that I just don't want my EA to be able to see. That goes in my personal inbox. But I keep very
pause
yes,
for a quick second. You're in marriage counseling now, and this is my guess because you have a really good marriage and it's getting better and better, because some of the best marriages that you and I know with people that are in our worlds, they are like great marriages and they go to marriage counseling.
Yeah, no, dude, I have 3 therapists. I have one for me, one for her, and then one that communicates between the two of us, and all 3 of them work in a pod together. So, it's too sensitive a situation to ever go it alone.
So the VA does not get access to
no, the VA does not get access to that, but the VA get access to a ton of, like, I default when in doubt. Actually, it's in my normal inbox. I've got a bunch of different businesses. So do you. They all funnel to the same address. Gmail allows for delegated access. This is really important. Do not ever just give somebody your username and password. That's dangerous. You can delegate access so that they can see your inbox. Now, my rules are a little bit different than other people's. My VA will never respond on my behalf. I write my own emails. What he does is he'll forward emails because, I have multiple businesses. So I have people running those businesses for me. So an email will come in for Nito marketing and he'll know, oh, Nito, this needs to go to Camille. Forward, archive. I never need to see it. So he'll forward emails, he'll archive emails, he'll unsubscribe from emails if it's spammy. And then he'll flag emails. And the only thing I pay attention to, I actually have my Apple Watch here on my wrist. And Sergio will send me, dude, it's so fun. I love that this just happened. He actually just sent me one. Let's see what it was. Sergio will text me with an image. And he just texts me, he takes a picture, and it's either my email inbox or my Slack channel. And Eric, the amount of stress this takes off me is insane because as a business owner, you're always checking your email, checking your Slack. I don't check anything. Sergio monitors all of it every day. And then if anything urgent comes in via email or text, he texts me with an image. And then this one is somebody saying, oh, we need more videos for our YouTube channel. And then I'll text him with reply and let him know what I want him to say. And the fact that I don't have to manage my email, Brendan Burchard says that your email inbox is just other people's task list.
Yep.
Stay at other people's task list. And I've got this guy doing it for me. And then it gives me the ability, the freedom and the flexibility to go do stuff like this.
I love that. All right, man. In a month, I will have 1 to 2 VAs hired and I'll report back to you and I'm going to use your method. I
love it, dude.
This podcast is going to, is the reason I am moving from agency to doing it this way. And that's been my question. What should I do with that? And I was wanting to find people, but all I knew was Upwork. You opened up my eyes to know where to find the VAs and how to do it. It'll be some upfront work, but that's okay.
Well, so 2 notes for you. And I know we're running short on time. I'll be very quick. 1, you're going to have to kiss some frogs, just like anything else. So, be prepared for a couple of minor failures, but you'll learn from them. 2, it's really important that you manage this person properly. Now that I have offshore resources, I make them do what I'm about to tell you, but I would block off 2 weeks of your time. You meet with them for an hour every single day at the beginning of their day, check in with them on what they're doing. And then this is the unfair part, Eric, you ready? Overwhelm them with tasks. If there's 10 units of things that they can do in a day, send them 12 every day. And let them know early. Say, hey, it's virtual. We're not together. You got to tell me when you get overwhelmed. Protect yourself from me. But you want to see when they raise their hand and when they call foul. Number 1. Number 2, because it is virtual, I don't track hours. I don't screenshot desktops. I don't, have them clock in and out. I just manage it according to the work that I think should be getting done. And the way they start running the race is the way they're going to continue to run the race. And if you step them in and you're like, I don't know what to do with this person, and it's really casual in the beginning, and then you hit your stride, well, now they're trying to catch up and you've already set a precedent. So the precedent you want to set on the front end is, hey, we go hard and fast here. And, you're going to spend 2 hours explaining how to do 15-minute tasks. That's a pain in the ass. But once you've explained how to do that 15-minute task, if you do that every day, you never have to do it again. And, you don't have to be a math genius to figure out that pays dividends.
Do you record those on Loom or on a Zoom with them? That way they can go back and refer to that as you show that to them?
Dude, I don't, but I should. Absolutely should. I usually make the first hire for any role. I make them build the systems for the next hire.
Yeah. Yep. Awesome, man. All right. I am going to let you go. I know that you have a hard stop. I've got another podcast or mastermind. I'm not even sure what's next for me. So, dude, this was so good. Unexpected. I didn't know where we were going. I had like my agenda and then you hijacked it and as usual made it much better. So thanks for your time, buddy.
Thanks for having me, brother. Appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Franchise Secrets Podcast. Whether you're watching or listening, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to whatever channel you're listening on. If you want my help with anything from buying a franchise to franchising your business, please visit franchisesecrets.com.